I wanted to first introduce myself. My name is John Gant. I'm president of ICCF, the International Conservation Caucus Foundation, which houses the Oceans Caucus Foundation. And we support the leadership in the House and Senate Ocean Caucuses, and look very, very forward to this Congress and supporting them in their priorities around IUU fishing, marine debris, rigs-to-reef. So this is a exciting time in oceans, and hopefully be able to get things done despite some of the other more difficult issues that are now surrounding and creating a lot of noise around Washington. Senator Whitehouse, founding co-chair of the Senate Oceans Caucus. Thank you.
What it lacked in fulsomeness, it made up in brevity. I just want to, hey Dane, hey Roger, I just wanted to say thank you so much to all of you for supporting the Oceans Caucus Foundation and supporting the Oceans Caucus. It is not an easy time for people from opposite sides of the partisan divide to find ways to work together. And if we don't sort of go about it deliberately in a processed way to try to work through issues and find areas where we can work together, it's very unlikely that it happens at all. So I particularly want to thank Lisa Murkowski, who is my co-chair. We have also ex officio chairs from the Commerce Committee, and I want to make sure that we recognize Mark Begich, who is the chair of the Fisheries Subcommittee on Commerce, is an ex officio, and Roger Wicker will be playing that role for the Republican side. He's also on the Fisheries Committee. So the four of us are trying to organize ways in which we can work together, and we are actually, it has taken some doing, but we actually are working forward on pirate fishing, illegal and unauthorized fishing, on marine debris, and on marine data collection. All of which is absolutely a critical baseline for everything else that we need to do. Those are three very good areas for us to do bipartisan work, and I think you'll see us, now that we're kind of over the initial humps, beginning to move forward legislatively to accomplish some of those goals. This matters particularly to me because even more than Connecticut, Rhode Island is the ocean state, and I'm welcoming Dick here. Same ocean. And I'll close with a story that I tell about a colleague of mine, Theodore Francis Green, who, if you've flown in and out of Rhode Island, you know that our airport is T.F. Green Airport, named after Senator and Governor Theodore Francis Green. Well, he did what people sometimes do in the Senate, which is annoy one of his colleagues. And the annoyed colleague turned to him and said, "Theodore, how big is that little state of yours anyway?" So Green answered back, "Well, that would depend, wouldn't it?" And his colleague had no idea what he meant and stammered and hemmed and hawed and finally said, "Oh, I don't understand, Theodore, what do you mean by that?" And Green looked at him and said, "High tide or low tide?" So this is big for Rhode Island, and you guys make it possible. Thank you very much.
I'm going to tell you a story which you probably heard before, but it is about one of the members of this body who, and I'm a relatively new senator, who remarked to his wife, "Did you ever think in your wildest dreams, dear, that I would be a United States senator?" And she said, "Honey, you're not even in my wildest dreams." Now, that story is about the dreams that we have also for environmental preservation and our oceans, and I'm really very proud to be following Senator Whitehouse's lead on this issue because he is such a steadfast and energetic advocate And that's what I did for a lot of years. He and I did together as attorneys general and as U.S. attorneys, and here too, we're working together. So I want to thank you for all that you're doing, because I've found as an advocate and a law enforcer, what means the most and what's most effective really are citizen advocates and activists. That's how we helped to protect Long Island Sound when it was threatened with industrial facilities like Broadwater. Many of you will remember that fight. And so too now with the oceans. We really depend on you. We rely on you for your judgment, your advocacy, and your insights, as well as the great information that you bring to us. So thank you so much for all that you do, and I'm really proud to be a partner with you in the Senate. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Well, I'm mindful of the ninth beatitude, blessed are the brief, they shall be invited back. So I want to be invited back. I'm going to be very brief following my two wonderful colleagues, but Sheldon Whitehouse has just brought so much energy and a fresh approach and just a passion for this issue. And it's really wonderful to have been here as a senator now for almost 16 years and to watch the body actually react emotionally to new senators that show up with their particular expertise and intellect and energy. And the Senate is a different place with him on this issue, and I'm really happy to join with him. We come from two completely different parts of the country. We do a lot more drilling in the oceans than he does off the East Coast, but we have a common interest in sustainability and common sense and cleanliness and opportunity for our people to really understand our oceans better and what it's going, how it has to be, the better stewardship of our oceans to make sure that we are maximizing the potential but not exploiting. And we need a lot more science to figure that out. And we saw that in every area. And with Senator Blumenthal, who also brings an incredible amount of energy and expertise as a prosecutor and another passionate advocate, it's just wonderful to work with them on this. So I want to put a shout out to both of them, and particularly Senator Whitehouse for the passage of NEO finally. We were going to try to do it on Restore. Let's give him a... We are a lot alike.
It never would have happened without the essential and elemental force of Mary Landrieu behind it.
Well, we conspired several years ago to make this happen. We tried to get it done on Restore, and at the last minute, as you know, it came out in the House of Representatives, but this senator didn't give up, and we stood with him, and he got a great vote. So we've got to build support, more support on the Republican side, more support on the House side. But I think that many of you that represent a whole broad cross-section of people are represented here, and the ambassadors from, thank you all for being a part of this, can bring the kind of leadership to this caucus that we need to get some wonderful things done for the people and animals, our fisheries that live in the oceans, and the people of the world that depend on us to be the best stewards we can. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, and it's an honor to be here today, senators, staff, and friends. Thanks for attending this evening. I'm pleased to speak as one of the founding members of the Oceans Caucus Foundation, and in my role, again, we've had a long history with sustainability. Bumblebee Foods has been around since 1897, and I've been the president and CEO there for about 15 years. Interestingly, if you go back 20 years ago, none of us ever talked sustainability. The word didn't exist 20 years ago. There were no issues that we were aware of. And sustainability has become literally an essential part of our life every day now, and one of the core tenets of our business practices. At Bumblebee about 7 years ago, we were one of the founding members of an organization that we're very proud of called the International Seafood Sustainability Foundation. And it recognized that our global tuna stocks were starting to be overfished. And if you look at tuna represents about a 4.2 million ton fishery. It's about 5% of global wild catches. And what's interesting is it's a fishery that goes around the equator, so it's not governed by any particular country, and so it has a lot of challenges that go along with multinational fisheries management. And what we found is that while there were technically regional fishery management organizations that existed, the political will within these organizations wasn't there to do what was essential to ensure the long-term sustainability of the stocks. And so we got together with a number of our compatriots in the industry. There was 8 of us to begin with from Europe, Asia, and the United States. and created the International Seafood Sustainability Foundation with a single objective, and that was to ensure the long-term sustainability of the world's global tuna stocks. We recognized that as industry, we couldn't necessarily have the kind of clout and or necessary credibility that an industry group would have. And so we were very pleased to partner with the World Wildlife Fund as our environmental partner, and we partnered with 8 of the world's leading scientists, many of whom from the regional fishery management organizations that were responsible for managing fisheries. And we think we created a model. We think we are the first organization that actually teamed industry with the environmental community and the scientific community to bring about positive change. I don't have enough time to talk about everything we've accomplished, but in the last 4 years, what we've accomplished in global tuna sustainability is unparalleled in any other fishery, and I would say any other industry around the world. And we believe ISSF forms a model for what other global fisheries can undertake to effectively manage their fisheries. You know, clearly industry plays a big role, and today our organization represents over 75% of the global canned tuna industry. So we bring our power to bear in our purchasing decisions. But clearly we also need the help of governments. And I think under the leadership of Senator Whitehouse, Senator Landrieu, and Senator Murkowski, and again, I'm not mentioning all of our friends and members of the Oceans Caucus Foundation, we need the U.S. to continue to take a lead. You know, the legislation that was mentioned on IUU, illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing, is absolutely critical. Things like port state measures, the Antigua Convention, you know, bills and legislation and, shall I say, regulations that the U.S. has been at the core of developing, but which we have a really hard time implementing. You know, it gives us a challenge of truly being the voice of conservation and sustainability around the world that we should be. So again, we look forward to working through the Oceans Caucus Foundation, not only on the issues of seafood sustainability, but a number of other oceans initiatives to ensure the long-term sustainability and health of our oceans. Thank you very much.
What an honor it is to be here in this company at this point in history. Never before has there been a better chance to think about what we can do with that other United States that's out there, an area that's larger than the part that most people think of as the United States. And of course, I'm talking about the part that starts at the shore and goes out 200 miles, over which this country has jurisdiction. We have an unprecedented opportunity, and I think an unprecedented obligation to draw on the new knowledge that exists today that literally could not exist in 1897 or even in 1997. We live at what you might think of, I think of, as the sweet spot in time, because never before could we know what we now know. None of our really bright predecessors, however brainy they were, could know what kids, 10-year-olds with an iPhone or other electronic device can look at the world, hold it in their hands, connect what's happening on one side of the world with what's happening in their backyard. Turns out our backyard, this nation's backyard, is blue. It's the ocean. And it's alive, filled with life, not just the kinds of creatures that we like to munch on, not just those that we like to turn into various products, not just a source of minerals and sand and other things that we extract from the ocean, not just a place to put things we don't want close to where we are. We now understand what we couldn't know until fairly recently, that the ocean keeps all of us alive. It doesn't matter where in this country or on Earth you live. We're all, in some ways, sea creatures because we need the ocean. No ocean, no life. No ocean, no us. We now know that the ocean drives climate and weather, shapes planetary chemistry, holds the planet steady in ever so many ways. Of course, we need all of the things that we've taken for granted on the land as well, but the significance of the ocean is just coming into focus, partly because we've invested in aviation and aerospace and the whole ways of communicating. We have that view of Earth from high above that before the 1960s, we could guess what Earth looked like, but we didn't really know. Now we know, not just from the view up here, but from the view deep within the sea. But it's amazing, isn't it? The kids can fly 7 miles high in the sky. You know, looking at movies, having lunch, taking a nap, 7 miles deep in the sea. Only 3 people and only 2 machines have ever made it to full ocean depth and come back. One-way trips are really easy. But it was just about this time last year that James Cameron made that historic descent solo to the deepest place in the sea, the Mariana Trench, a place that's within an area that President George W. Bush designated as one of his moves to protect a chunk of the ocean. Now, it isn't a big part of the ocean, but it's a really important part of the ocean, the deepest place on the planet. And it's worth saving, like the Grand Canyon, like other parks and protected areas that we treasure on the land. Now, in the sea, we're getting to understand. We have a chance to get it right. Imagine going back 100 years ago, go back to Teddy Roosevelt's time, armed with what we now know. What on the land might we do differently about the water, about the forests, about the wildlife, given a chance to start over? In a way, we have a chance to start over, but in the ocean, because only about 5% has been explored, seen, or mapped with the same degree of accuracy that we have for the moon or Mars. We have a chance that is unprecedented, and the power that's here in this room, both with this country and internationally. Just this time last week with Sherry Sant Plummer, we were in the Coral Sea and the Great Barrier Reef, and we were saluting Australia for the vision, the foresight to embrace their exclusive economic zone with a plan that takes into account protecting the assets. Protecting the assets. You might make decisions later but you know, before it all gets kind of chewed apart by this interest and that interest, just say, no, wait a minute, let's, based on what we now know, let's set aside this chunk as part of our life support system. If you like to breathe, you will value that. If you like the fact that water magically falls out of the sky, you'll thank Australia for what they're doing. And all of us, no matter where on earth we live, now have a chance to participate in one of the great momentous moves in all of human history, and that is to decide what to do about half of the world, the high seas, beyond national jurisdiction. The mighty brain trust that's assembled in this room can have a huge impact on how humankind treats our life support system, the assets that heretofore have never been accessible. We've invested in aviation and aerospace, and it's paid off handsomely. We've neglected the ocean. It's costing us dearly. This is the moment when we can take moves so that kids in the future, 50 years, 100 years, whatever it is, will say, thank you. I heard Jacques Cousteau say once that he could not take his children to places that he knew as a child. I heard his son, Jean-Michel Cousteau, say the same thing about his children, quite unrelated conversations. So now there are other Cousteau children and even grandchildren on the horizon. What are they going to think about what we have done to the planet? They can think kindly of us going forward, or they will think, why didn't you do something now that we know? Well, that's it, the sweet spot in time. We know, and this is the chance, as never before, to get it right. Maybe as never again. Thank you.